Hello there, Middle-earth fanatics. Welcome to another army review. So today I'm going to start a review of an army that has been asked me a few times, that being, as the title shows, Minas Tirith. So there is a lot of profiles in the Minas Tirith army. So many at this point that they actually encompass 3 different books. That being the Armies of the Lord of the Rings book, Gondor at War, and the Quest of the Ringbearer. So I believe that is all of them. If I am mistaken, please let me know if there's another book that we have profiles in. That being said, I do have all 3 books, so I will be able to cover at least those profiles that I can remember being in the Minas Tirith army. So first off, I want to say that Minas Tirith is actually the name of the army. There are a lot of folks that mistakenly call it Gondor. So Gondor is in the profiles, but it is a keyword of the profiles. Minas Tirith is actually the true name for the quote-unquote Gondor army. The reason being because of another army called Fiefdoms, which I have talked about before, also having the Gondor keyword, so that some of the bonuses from the Minas Tirith army actually apply to the Fiefdoms one. So let's go ahead and we're going to start today, as the title and the description also says, we're going to talk about the Legendary and Valor Tier heroes for the Minas Tirith army, because I'll be honest and blunt, there are a ass load of heroes when it comes to the Minas Tirith army. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, in my opinion, it means that there's a lot of variation that you can find when building a Minas Tirith army list. You can go with some of the big hitters that we all know and love, being Aragorn, Elessar, Gandalf the White. Yes, I know Gandalf doesn't have the Gondor keyword. We'll talk about that later. Don't worry. Boromir, Faramir. You can even throw Denethor in there, who is not a big hitter, so to speak, but is a very well-known piece from not only the books, but the movies as well. Moving on, there are a lot of minor heroes as well, and I'm not talking about tier status here, I'm just talking about in general, being as something as simple as the captain of Minas Tirith all the way down to Ingold, who's become a very popular model, to Madril, Barathor, Damrod, and plenty of others. So what I'm going to do is list and talk about the different tiers and the heroes in them. So going right into it with the legendary tier, there is only one model who is a hero of legend from Minas Tirith, and that is Aragorn, King Elessar, with the Man Gondor infantry hero keywords, and he is what used to be the gold standard for heroes when it came to butt kicking. Unfortunately, with the release of The Hobbit, there was definitely a bit of a power creep. So Aragorn, whose stats used to be exemplary and top tier, are now, unfortunately, I wouldn't say they're not top tier anymore, but he isn't as great as he used to be. Even that's not an appropriate word. Let's go with he's not as elite as he used to be. So there's a lot more elite hero tiers out there, or hero models out there now, that fall in that hero of legend tier. Just to name 2 of them, both from The Hobbit, the new Thranduil and Dane are both better. Debatable, yes, I know, but both, for their points, are considered to be better than Aragorn Elessar. So what are Aragorn King Elessar stats, you ask? Well, let's talk about that. He is fight 6 with a 3-up shoot value. Interesting that he has this because Aragorn Strider used to be able to, or can take a bow, whereas Aragorn King Elessar, wow, I'm really botching it already, guys, no longer has the ability to take a bow, but still has that 3-up shoot value. Strength of 4, defense is 7, 3 attacks, 3 wounds, courage 6, 3 might with an asterisk, 3 will, 3 fate. So he has 3s in all the right places, that being attacks, wounds, might, will, and fate. He has heavy armor and Anduril Flame of the West. So Anduril Flame of the West is an active ability, so he can't be transfixed in order to use it. It is an elven made hand and a half sword. When making strikes with Anduril, Aragorn never requires more than a 4 to wound with his rolls. Note, if Aragorn elects to use the 2-handed weapon option, then he still gets the +1 to wound, meaning that his wounds will be 3-up. So I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever seen anybody 2-hand with Aragorn. That being said, there is plenty of possibilities out there for it to happen. The reason I've never seen it done is because of his high point cost and the fact that he is now dropped from that high elite status to like a medium tier elite status, is you just don't see him that much anymore. He's a lot more easily countered with cheaper minor heroes and just spams overtaking other big heroes, which is kind of the current meta for the game. It's kind of leaning, at least here in the US, it's leaning more to going with those smaller heroes than the huge big heroes that are just kind of supported by a few troops. And by few, I'm talking like 30 units, as opposed to the smaller tier heroes having a plethora behind them of 40 or more. Moving along, he has basically all the heroic actions, let's be honest. He has Resolve, March, Strike, Strength, Defense, and Challenge. So he's basically got everything you need when it comes to doing his heroic actions. He can take an Armored Horse, and he has Horse Lord and Mighty Hero. So for those who do not know, Mighty Hero is not covered in his profile, but Mighty Hero allows you to spend 1 point of might per turn without reducing your store. So it's that free reoccurring might that you always hear people talk about. And veterans of the game who have played with Aragorn, King Elessar, just love having that free point of might. Even the Strider version has it. So it's always great getting Aragorn on a table, because then you've always got might. Even if you're tapped, you've always got might. It's great. And then the last thing that he has is Stand Men of the West special rule, which means that friendly models within 6 inches of Aragorn King Elessar counts as being in range of Banner. So that's great because it does say friendly. It does not say specifically keyword these models. So that means friendly models are anybody in an army you take. So if you go with an alliance, those friendly models in 6 range do count as a banner, which makes sense because if you think about it, the Stand Men of the West title for this special rule has to come from the Black Gates when he's speaking to both Minas Tirith and Rohan warriors. So definitely a good special rule there. So that is our one hero of legend. Let's go ahead and we're going to talk about our heroes of valor, which there are 5 of. And while that doesn't sound like a lot of profiles to cover, there's a lot going on with these guys. So this is definitely going to be a bigger video, as you can already tell. So moving on, we have Gandalf the White. Gandalf has Wizard, Infantry, Hero, Hero of Valor, keywords. No Gondor, like I said, but he is in the Minas Tirith army list, which makes sense because he did help muster the defenses of Minas Tirith until Rohan came to help aid them. So while he does not carry the Gondor keyword, he can be taken in the list. He is Fight 5, 4 up shoot value, Strength of 4, Defense of 6, 2 attacks, 3 wounds, Courage 7, 3 might, 6 will with an asterisk, and 3 fate. He has the Staff of Power, which allows him to expend 1 will point per turn without depleting his storage. And that can be used to cast or resist, or courage checks. He has Glamdring and Narya. So Glamdring is a elven made hand and a half sword. He also increases Gandalf's strength by 1 when making strikes with it. So it specifically says when making strikes. So things like rend will not affect that. He still is a base of 4, so if you get rended, you are comparing it to a strength of 4. But only when making strikes will his strength be considered 5, which is still very good. So defense 7 troops are now being wounded on 5s. Very good to have there. And, of course, elven-made weapon, so you're getting those roll-offs on 3 up instead of 4. Moving on, we have Narya, which is his ring of or one of the 3 elven rings. It allows him to re-roll dice when making fate rolls. So if he fails a fate, you can re-roll it. Now, there are actually opportunities where you actually want to fail fate to potentially die. So it does say re-roll. So if you pass, I do believe, and I have seen this somewhere, where you can re-roll a pass to a fail, potentially. As always, if you re-roll, you must stick with the final outcome. I'm not 100% sure if that is allowed, but I have seen folks do it. So I would definitely say anybody out there who wants to follow up with me, please let me know in the comment section below if you can re-roll a past fate roll. Again, it doesn't specifically say you can't, so I would assume that, as I've seen it before, you can do that. I mean, maybe a way to go ahead and, have your leader fail I don't see why you would want to roll a fate point to fail. Um, Outside of Lords of Battle being where if you die with fate, then it actually counts 4 points to your opponent's score. Again, though, I have seen it done. Weird as it may seem, I have seen it done. So his actions are Resolve, Channeling, and Strike, which is very good because him being Fight 5 with 2 attacks, if you take him mounted on Shadowfax, which is his only upgrade option, then on a charge against an infantry or other model that allows it, he can get to 3 attacks. So Shadowfax's profiles here, we'll talk about him real quick. 12-inch movement, strength of 4, defense of 5, 1 wound, courage 5, no might, 2 will, 1 fate. So his will can be used to help resist spells that target the whole model or him specifically, but not to be used by Gandalf for casting. Lastly, we have Gandalf's magical powers, and those include Blinding Light, Immobilize, Terrifying Aura, Command, Fortify Spirit, Strengthening Will, Banishment, really good against Ring Wraiths, Sorcerer's Blast, and your staff is broken. So, and he is a great caster. Nothing needs greater than a 4. So he is very well known for being able to freebie a lot of the lower spells like Blinding Light, Immobilize, and Terrifying Aura, and then known for freebieing +1 will store to usually get those harder skills that you need like Banishment or Sorcerer's Blast off. So that is Gandalf, our first hero of valor, and our second hero we've talked about today. So moving on, we have Denethor, the Steward of Gondor. So not really considered to be a real, true Valor tier hero, but he is a hero of valor, so we're going to talk about him. Of course, your tier isn't always based off your fighting prowess, so that is something to keep in mind. So he's Man, Gondor, infantry hero, fight value of 5, strength of 4, defense of 5, 2 attack, 2 wound, courage of 5, no might, 3 will, no fate. He has armor and a sword. Broken Mind is the special rule, and that's the one that usually gets people really in trouble. At the start of each turn, before priority is rolled, the controlling player must take a courage test for Denethor. If it is passed, all is fine. If the test is failed, Denethor is controlled by the opposing player until the end phase of that turn. Whilst under the control of the opposing player, friendly models cannot target Denethor with shooting attacks or magical powers that cause damage and may not make strikes if they beat him in a fight. That being said, the opposing player can use him to make strikes against your own friendly models. And I have done that before where my opponent's Denethor has failed. I have charged him into a mounted mounted knight of Minas. Well, knight, so of course they're mounted. Into a knight of Minas Tirith. Let's go with that. I was trying to get to mounted banner that is upgraded with a banner and killed him. So I've taken out like a 35, 38, 40 point model right there just by killing a knight with a banner with Denethor, who failed his Broken Mind Courage test. Now, note that the army bonus will help you with this, which we haven't talked about yet, and we'll talk about it later in depth, but it does give a +1 to courage. So him going from courage 5 to courage 6 makes it a lot less likely for him to fail those tests. Of course, you still have to worry about terror armies that can give a -1 and knock him back to the 5, but you do have 3 points of will to use in case that is a problem. So there is a second part of that, and that is to the Broken Mind rule, and that is if Boromir is part of the same army as Denethor, then Denethor will automatically pass his courage test so long as Boromir is alive. Should Boromir be slain, then Denethor will automatically fail the next courage test he must take for this special rule. So that's actually pretty cool to see because you can see people taking Denethor and Boromir, and the reason being is this next special rule, and that is the rule of Gondor is mine and no others. If your force contains Denethor, then he must be your leader unless your force also contains Aragorn, King Elessar. So Aragorn, King Elessar trumps Denethor not only because he's hero of legend, but also because he is the rightful king. Whereas Denethor is the steward, so all are subservient to him. Therefore, again, going back to like I said, taking Denethor with Boromir is a really good combo because Denethor's your leader. Yes, he's very squishy. 2 wounds, courage 5. Not really what you want as a frontline killer. He used to be very useful to take just because of the fact he could lead 12 troops before. And he's a strength 4, killing machine against troops. When you used to be, before the current edition, you used to be able to take and name any hero your leader. So taking Denethor at a cheap point cost meant that you could buff your troop numbers significantly, and put him in the middle of the lines and use him to go and fight your opponent's own like shield and spear wall or just his base troops. And at strength 4, with a fight value of 5 and 2 attacks, you can usually kill a troop a turn. So after 3 rounds of combat, most troops averaging around 8 to 9 points, you've almost made your points up with Denethor, which is pretty good to say because a lot of heroes usually don't do that on a game-to-game basis. Unfortunately, with the new rules where the highest level tier model has to be your leader, and then Denethor's special rule trumping Boromir and Faramir and even Gandalf, this is where you can kind of see, folks, like I said, I've played around with it, and I think it works really well if you're smart with Denethor. Take Denethor, take Boromir, take Faramir even if you want, take Gandalf, whatever. Whoever you take, just, Denethor and then one of those heroes outside of Aragorn and Elessar. And now you can take Denethor, and on scenarios that allow for it, you can just go hide him in the back, have him go prone, lay down behind a piece of terrain. He can't be seen, he can't be targeted, he can't be shot at, whatever. Obviously be careful, because if your opponent has fast-moving troops or flyers, then they can make this whole strategy moot. But then you can go and throw your Faramir, your Gandalf, your Boromir into combat. And usually those guys, while they are great combat killers, you have to be a little bit careful with how you use them, because you don't want them getting wounded since they're your leaders. But now that you have Denethor as your leader, you've hidden him in the backfield. You're not going to have to worry about it. Send those guys like ballistic missiles in there to go and do the damage and get the kills that you really want to get. It lets you be a little more loose with those bigger heroes, like the Boromirs, the Gandalfs, and the Faramirs. Not to the point, obviously, where you shoot yourself in the foot, but where you're like, that's kind of a tough. I don't know if I can really win that. It's a long shot. Maybe you lean more towards those long shot plays. So that's Denethor. So we have a couple profiles left. Let's go ahead. We have 3 of them, actually. Let's go ahead and talk about Boromir. So Boromir, Captain of the White Tower. He's main Gondor infantry hero of valor. Fight value 6, 4 up shoot value, strength 4, defense 6, 3 attack, 3 wound, courage 6, 6 might, 3 will, 3 fate. So he's got 3s in all the right places, plus a double 3 when it comes to his might with 6. He has heavy armor, sword, and the Horn of Gondor. So the Horn of Gondor is an active keyword. He can blow the horn at the start of a fight if he is outnumbered by 2 to 1 or more. The enemy combatant in the fight with the highest courage value must take a courage test. If the test is passed, the combat is far as normal. If the test is failed, Boromir automatically wins the fight and can strike blows against his enemies. Very good to have. Again, like I was saying, where you just go ahead and send Boromir like a ballistic missile, go and wreck stuff if you have like Denethor for your leader. Great little special rule there. Heroic actions include strike, defense, and strength. So no marching, no resolve, but that kind of makes sense. Defense, he defends his country, his land, his people. Strength, he's a mighty warrior. And strike, he's going to be able to fight anybody at the tiers. War gear options: the Banner of Minas Tirith, Horse, Lance, and Shield. So the Banner of Minas Tirith is a passive weapon. It is a banner with a range of 6. Additionally, Boromir and all friendly Gondor warrior keyword models within 6 inches of it gain a +1 to their fight value. Note this is cumulative with other bonuses to a model's fight value. Boromir suffers no penalties for carrying the Banner of Minas Tirith. He may not carry the Banner of Minas Tirith if he is also carrying a lance. So, sorry, you can't call that banner a lance. But this is something that was taken a lot before. It's less seen now just because of cost. But it was really popular before for a good while there. Getting Boromir to fight 7, so then he's not really having to worry too much about striking against certain things. He can charge in there. He's still got heroic strength, so you can get him up to strength 7 to wound things. And then giving your standard warrior Minas Tirith, their biggest weakness has always been their fight value of 3. Now you've got a nice 12-inch diameter of fight value bonus buffing. That's always great. Plus it's a banner on top of that. So moving on, we have Faramir, Captain of Gondor. Man Gondor infantry hero keywords. Fight value 5, 3 up shoot value, which makes sense because he's a ranger primarily. Strength of 4, defense of 5, 2 attacks, 2 wounds, courage 6, 3 might, 3 will, 2 fate. Definitely like his current profile. In the old edition, he was only 2 will. Nice to see that he got that buff to his will being 3, because he is, of the 2 brothers, the one that was able to decline or overcome his his want for the Ring of Power. So nice to see that. His war gear is armor and a sword. He has heroic resolve, accuracy, strike, and defense. So no strength for him. Accuracy makes sense because, again, his ranger background, and resolve because he does have a sturdy will. He has a woodland creature, and he can take an armored horse or a regular horse, bow, heavy armor, lance, and shield for upgrades. So you usually see him, unless you're talking like Rangers of Ithilien Legendary Legion, which will be a whole nother video, you usually see him fully kitted out with the heavy armor, the lance, the shield, and the armored horse. So it kind of starts adding a good amount of points to him, but then he gets to be defense 7. You know, he's on an armored horse, so he's going to charge in and have 3 attacks. The lance gives him +1 to wound. It's nice to see. He is he's a mini Boromir, and he can do it well if used properly. His last special rule is there a captain here who still has the courage to do his lord's will? And that is, if Denethor is part of the same army as Faramir, then Faramir will automatically pass all courage tests he is forced to take whilst Denethor is alive on the battlefield. So essentially he gets fearless, I'm sorry, not fearless. Well, yeah, fearless and bodyguard, so to speak. However, whilst Denethor is on the battlefield, Faramir must always charge an enemy model if he is able to do so. So that is kind of a downside. There's no, using heavy hitting, like heroic combat and then run away to kite or whatever, or go grab an objective with him. If he wins a heroic combat, or just in general, he has to go charge a model if it's in range. That's only if you take Denethor, though. But like I was talking about earlier, it is cool to kind of take Denethor with Faramir, or with Faramir and Boromir, because then you can use Boromir and Faramir like those ballistic missiles I was talking about. So in that situation, you can go ahead and use Boromir to potentially go grab those objectives, who is a bit hardier, having that 3rd point of fate and that extra wound, and a lot more might to go with as well. So lastly, this profile comes from the Gondor at War. That is Hurin the Tall, Warden of the Keys. He is our final hero of valor we're going to talk about today. He is Man Gondor infantry hero. He is fight value 5, 4 up shoot value, but doesn't have the ability to shoot anything except for narrative scenarios that would allow you to take a ranged weapon. Strength of 4, defensive 6, 2 attack, 2 wound, courage 5, 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate. So he is an upgraded captain, so to speak, with that whole 3 might, 1 will, 1 fate. It's pretty common for what you see a lot of hero fortitudes that are named having. But he is better than a hero fortitude. He is a hero of valor, obviously. That's why I'm talking about him. But he's got some special rules for that. So he comes with heavy armor and the Warden sword. The Warden sword is a master forged hand-and-a-half sword. So that means you can go two-handed and get the +1 to wound without taking the -1 to your dual roll, which is really good, because at strength 4, he can go up against defense 7, defense 8, and start wounding it on 5s. So he's pretty good at being a can opener. Very similar to what you see Khazad Guard being able to do when they're upgraded to Hearthguard for Durin. So, and he has the ability to be mounted on a horse for a war gear option. So 3 attacks on a charge against a appropriate model definitely means he's doing some wounds. He's opening that can well. His heroic abilities include resolve, strike, and strength. So you definitely see him doing strikes a lot because of the fact that at fight 5, he can go in there and take on some of those medium tier heroes that are his own contemporaries, like Forlong, and strike up higher than them to get the kill. Now, even better, I've never done this, but it is pretty cool. The ability to do a heroic strength with him, get him to fight value 7 +1 to wound. I mean, there's not a lot of things in the game that you would not be wounding on a minimum of 4 there, if not 3s, because that strength. If you can get him to strength 7 against the defensive 7, that's a 4 to wound +1 with the master forged hand-and-a-half sword. That's 3s. So definitely a good killer. He has 2 special rules, the first being in defense of the king. Whilst within 3 inches of either Denethor or Aragorn, King Elessar, Hurin gains the Fearless special roll and may re-roll a single d6 when making a dual roll. So that's a grid special ability. just due to the fact that he can get fearless near Aragorn or Denethor, but he doesn't really need to stay within 3 inches because Aragorn's ability gives it to all friendly hero or friendly models anyway. So as long as he's within 6, he's always going to be able to re-roll a dice in his dual roll. And if he's within 3 of Aragorn or Denethor, then he's going to get the ability to be fearless as well. I see the reroll being better around Denethor, but again, if you're taking Denethor, you should be doing like I talked about and potentially protecting him or hiding him. His last special ability is Line of Command. If the leader of your army is a Gondor hero keyword, then whilst Hurin the Tall is alive on the battlefield, your opponent cannot score victory points for slaying the enemy leader. So that's what I was talking about where Minas Tirith keywords come into play, because there is no Minas Tirith keyword, it's Gondor. So you could technically take Gondor allied with fiefdoms, take a hero of valor like Boromir, then take Imrahil, who is a hero of legend. Imrahil now has to be your leader. Imrahil has the Gondor keyword. So if you also take Hurin, then you can use Imrahil. He send him in like a ballistic missile. He dies. Okay, well that sucks. Well, Hurin's still alive. So negate your opponent's VPs in match play. This is for match play. And just go protect Hurin the rest of the game, and you've negated your ability to get your opponent to get 2 or 3 victory points against you. So that is the profiles for the Heroes of Legends and the Heroes of Valor. Next time I will talk about the Heroes of Fortitude, and there's a good bit of them as well. So don't worry, another long video. But until next time, please like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Please let me know what armies you'd like to see in the comment section below. This series is done from a request by a dear subscriber, so I hope you're enjoying these, and I look forward to seeing what else you would like me to talk about. But until next time, enjoy your Middle-earth hobby, and take care.